So the world has changed. This is a student radio station that I worked in rather longer ago than I would like to talk about, but it was in the 90s. Let's say it's in the 90s. And one of the fascinating things about this is a guy I used to who used to do shows with. But the fascinating thing looking back at this is the thing that's closest to a computer in this radio studio is the teletext TV up there. Remember teletext? Yeah. So analog. We had some CDs that they were around. Is that a cart machine there? I can't quite remember whether we had carts or mini discs at that point. But look, we didn't have computers. We didn't have IT in broadcasting. And this is the website of the radio station. Websites were a new thing then. And this was the exciting page we had on the website that said, we've got some audio clips that you can listen to on the internet. Wow. And I think the reason that I picked this out is that this was the sort of start. This was the first thing that happened that brought the internet and IT into the broadcasting industry, was a bit of audio that you could stream for a few minutes on a website. And I know, in the late 90s, people started doing some more sophisticated things. They started doing longer streaming. There was real media, real audio and real media. Do you remember them? But in broadcasting, we used to be the cutting edge, didn't we? Look at that. Imagine when that was put in, that little hoisting panel. And then, of course, we invented things like CFAX, didn't we? Which was teletext was a triumph in its day, wasn't it? It was an absolutely fascinating thing. Before this world of computing came along and the internet came along, and for a while, actually, I think in some organisations it's still like this, isn't it? For a while, we had a broadcast engineering team, and we had an IT team, and they didn't even like to talk to each other. It's true, isn't it? They even had their own little kingdoms. The IT team, made sure people could use Microsoft Word, and the broadcast engineers did the serious telly stuff, or the radio stuff, or whatever it was. So this was an article. So it's unbelievably, this was 12 years ago that Mark Andreessen published this seminal, I think it is now, article in the Wall Street Journal about why software is eating the world. And we are now, I think, in a place where we talk about video. So it happened in audio quite a lot earlier. But in video, we have moved, haven't we, from an analog electronics world to this digitized software world. So we had digital tapes, and then we had files, and then we had IP, and we've kind of slowly but surely become IT. And so we're in this world now where Moore's law is still holding true. Computing is just getting faster and faster, smaller and smaller. We, as an industry, broadcast and media, have never been used to the rate of change that's happening here, that's happening in software, that's happening in IT, that's happening in networks. And we see that pace of change in other industries. So fintech, I think in the last few years, has been a big industry. We've got some challenger banks who are really doing stuff that's actually changing the market. So let's talk about cloud. What is cloud? Does everyone think they know what cloud is? Is cloud these people? What do you think? Is it a bit of AWS? You throw all your things in AWS and say that's cloud. I think what we like to say here is that it's a bit more than that, a lot more than that. And I like this phrase, which is that cloud is computing infrastructure dynamically defined and controlled by software, and it's the software that's the important bit, isn't it? And it's talking about automated infrastructure. This is my son driving a train. This is the Elizabeth line. He's just outside Paddington. But the great thing about this train is that there's a little white button there, and when you press it, the train goes to the next station all by itself, and the doors open. And then all you have to do is watch people get on and off on these monitors on the side, and then you close the doors, and then you press the right button again. And it goes, so it's a fully automated train service. Some of you probably got it here tonight. And it, there's a triumph of software. It's not what we're doing, but I thought it was a fun picture. But in terms of the tools that we might use in the cloud for automation, these are the kinds of things we're talking about. Some of them you may have heard of. They're not all cloud exclusive tools, but most of them are used in association with the cloud. So there's this guy called Jonathan Smart. He has written a book which I think is called Sooner, Safer, Happier. And this is a really key excerpt, I think, from his book. Really key quote. I'm not going to read it all. I might give you a moment to have a look at it. But I think the key point is right at the end there. It's due to the new means of production with instant and vast compute power, storage, and communication, change is continuous. And this is really saying, once you've automated everything, you don't have to, hone your production line anymore. You're not about, you don't have to optimize your processes. You've automated it all. So actually, you're doing something slightly different, which is more conducting the orchestra, let's say. And of course, in media, we have Netflix, who quite a few years ago said, we're going to automate everything. We're going to go cloud native. We're going to be cloud native. And as we speak, they are still the only SVOD service that is a profitable proposition, as we know. And part of the way they achieve that is by being cloud native. So just to summarize, for my bit, we'll find out what being cloud native means in a minute, by the way. We're not a self-contained industry anymore. We've got what's called disruptive innovation. Anybody heard of the book, The Innovator's Dilemma? Classic 90s business book. It's worth a read if you have a reading spot. But we've got a new pace of change. It's much greater than we're used to. And we have to adapt and learn from external experience. So when we talk about those other industries like fintech, who've been through challenging things with people's bank accounts, real-time information, regulatory oversight, all of those things, they've got some real things that they can teach us about how to do this. And so my answer to why we are doing this is it's a bit of an extension of Polly's Venn diagram, isn't it? It's we're here to collaborate. We're here to bring those cloud native skills into our industry and say, okay, we need to work together and achieve what the next step is. We don't really know what the next step is. We've got some ideas, but we'll find out and we'll achieve. And those of us that succeed will be collaborating and working with the cloud native industry. And on that note, I'm going to hand you over to David.
Really, before we can talk about what cloud native is, we need to talk about the problem with moving to the cloud. And really, before we talk about the problem with moving to the cloud, we've got to talk about, the fact that we had the same problems when we were moving into digital. So moving to digital, what happened when a lot of companies moved to digital? Not everyone, but what happened when people went digital? They were simply digitizing existing processes and products. They were not adapting or leveraging digital advantages. And what do I mean by that? We used to have a physical copy of a tape, take the physical copy of a tape to department's in tray. When the department's finished with that, move it to the out tray, move it to the next department, rinse, repeat. What we could have done is maybe taken these files, stored them in a data store, put a service in front, provided access to them via some sort of service which we could customize depending on people's usage. We didn't, because the non-technical challenges are generally bigger than the technical ones. It wasn't a technical challenge. It was really about the people processes, the team structures, the reporting structures, and so on and so on. So what people ended up doing is they created a file share on a network, and they had servers that sat there listening to folders. File goes in folder, I do something. I spit it out to another folder, Another process picked it up from that folder, so on, so on, so on. You just replicated your normal non-digital processes in a digital space to save you from having to tackle people, processes, team structures, reporting structures, and the other things. You know, it's a challenge that everyone had. So going back, the problem with moving to the cloud. Moving to the cloud. Same thing again. Simply moving existing processes and products to the cloud, not adapting and leveraging cloud advantages. What do I mean by that? Well, some common themes. There's not all the themes, but some common themes. Lift and shift existing applications from a private VM to a public VM. Classic. You know, my hardware issues are now their hardware issues. Lift and shift. Migrate to a SaaS offering, such as Amazon Transcribe. You know, just give it to someone else. And now my hardware issues are their hardware issues. My service problems are now their service problems. They can deal with it. And there's the other, which is surprisingly common, which is we gave some devs access to an AWS account, and now they have built a service which we rely upon, but have not given adequate resources or commitments to, partly because we didn't know it existed until it was too late, and partly because we didn't know where to start even if we found out it existed. I have problems. Right? This I see a lot. And with the giggles and everything, I think you see it as well. The shadow ops. Why? Because even within these big, massive systems, the people, the processes, the structures stop people from being able to do their work. You gave some devs access to AWS, and they were like, it doesn't take me 2 weeks to get an IP address. I can get a VM within 20 seconds. I don't have to fill out these 20 forms. And off they're off. And as far as the management is concerned, or the people around them, they're just, the velocity's flying. They're happy. They're really happy. Until they realize, we rely upon this now. Okay. So I suppose we should inform the security team this thing exists. The bill's probably going to go up, so we're going to have to explain why the AWS bill is going to go up. And yeah, happens a lot. And so some people essentially sleepwalk into the cloud. They find themselves there one day. They could go off and announce a partnership with a cloud provider. We're partnering with AWS, we're partnering with Google, we're partnering with this. But the reality is that's what happened. It wasn't structured. So what is cloud native? Go back to this. Well, let's hit it directly. It's the next branded wave of technical advancement. It's a brand. It's a term. It encapsulates the next advancement. Cloud is a term. DevOps was a term. You know, let's just accept it for what it is. It's a branding exercise. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it is a branding exercise. You know, do I need it? Not always. It's not for every industry. It's not for every company. It's not for every business. It's not for every team. Right? You know, for some, digitizing your company's needs is enough. Fine. For others, companies, moving to the cloud is enough. Fine. You know, why do others want it? Well, like with other waves, this will depend on how dependent your business is on technology. If your business isn't wholly dependent on technology, you might not need it. But if you are, then like with other waves, you can unlock new capabilities for your team and open wider options for your business. And that's one of the key advantages of this whole process. If you end up exactly where you were before as a business, with exactly the same options and exactly the same capabilities as you were before you started to go cloud native, what's the point? Have you made savings? Have you got new opportunities? Are you more agile? Can you move into new business areas? Can you grow quicker? Can you grow slow? No, then don't do it. But if those things are important to your business, maybe it's something you need to consider. You know, how do I know it's here? How do we know that cloud native is here? Apart from the fact they're all in a place called cloud native media. Well, increase in bullshit marketing jargon. Everywhere, cloud native, cloud native, cloud native, cloud native. New unfounded claims that X is a product that you can just buy. Come to us. Here's some cloud native. Thank you very much. And developers and engineers' resumes, titles morphing from Y to X. Where are those full stack engineers? They're all cloud native engineers now. Overnight. And their rates have gone up too. So again, what is cloud native? The Oxford Dictionary defines Cloud Native Computing Foundation defines cloud native as, and I'm going to read this out because it's a bit of a thing. Cloud native technologies empower organizations to build and run scalable applications in modern, dynamic environments, such as public, private, and hybrid clouds. Containers, service meshes, microservices, immutable infrastructure, and declarative APIs exemplify this approach. Right? I don't like this in isolation. I hate this, actually, as it presents cloud native as a technology vending machine. You know? I'll take 2 microservices and a sprinkling of service mesh, please. That'll be $2 million. Thank you. You know, I don't like it in isolation. You know, but it gives us a hint of the elements that exist in the space to help. So, you know, dynamic, clouds, containers, service meshes, microservices, musical services, infrastructure, declarative APIs. These things are important, but they're hints. They're part of what can make up a plan. You know, these words in isolations are not the solution. You know, you don't pick up microservices and have all your dreams come true, often. You know, but they are the tools that you can use on the road to your solution. They can be. So there's a second part of this as well, which I really like, which is these techniques enable loosely coupled systems that are resilient, manageable, and observable. Combined with robust automation, they allow engineers to make high-impact changes frequently and predictably with minimum toil. So that 12 times. But we are getting somewhere with it, though. Because now we're getting loosely coupled systems, resilient, manageable, observable, automation, predictable changes, minimal toil. These are things we can start to understand. Right? Again, they're not a product that you buy, but they're an end state for the system. Why do we want these? Because through these we get that resilience, we get that agility, we get options for the business to be able to move and seek new advantages. You know, so this is a means to an end, not just for the technology, but for the business itself. So yeah, they mentioned technical concepts and attributes which associate to cloud-native solutions. These are operational goals which provide capabilities and flexibilities for businesses to act on. That's the point. It's not to make the tech team's life easier. Really? Not really. Reduce costs? Yes. Minimize staff costs, automate lots of things? Yes. But underneath, it's to be able to offer opportunities for the business to act on. You know, so straight in, like these are the list of things that I believe cloud native are. You saw the official list earlier on, but really, from my experience working with companies, what cloud native means is deciding your business will embrace the advantages that cloud and cloud-aligned technologies bring. Has to happen at this level. You know, it's very unlikely you will succeed without this. You know, this is a top-down decision, very difficult to affect change from bottom up. Unlike the previous example with the shadow ops, yeah, you can sneak in, set up a couple of VPCs, get a couple of services, you know, get a Lambda function 2 in, go to the board, say, we're serverless, you know, get a pay rise. But to do this, you've got to commit to it, and you understand why you're committing to it. So it's something that happens on this level. The next thing is accepting all layers of your stack are open for business. All layers. This is not just an infrastructure challenge. This is an application challenge. This is a team challenge. This is a process challenge. You know, the classic Dilbert comic. I love this comic strip. You know, I'll read it out for you. I need to know why moving our app to the cloud didn't automatically solve all of our problems. You wouldn't let me re-architect the app to be cloud native. It's like, just put it in containers. It's like, you can't solve a problem just by saying techie things. Kubernetes. Removing the fear of technical change. Big one. Because if you are an organization that has a number of pieces with this in it, you are no longer letting your plan dictate your technology. You're letting your technology dictate your plan, which is going to cost you, which is going to limit you. Now, you're not necessarily being fully native. You may find you're making compromises at fundamental levels, which mean you are not going to fulfill or get all of the capabilities of flexibility at the end. You have to remove the fear of making technical changes. Some of that may be moving certain equipment to other newer types of equipment, could be automating. It could be adding resilience. It could be accepting the downtime of the box in the corner that says, beware of the leopard. But you have to. Because if you don't, that is dictating the plan, not the other way around. Pivoting from static to dynamic solutions. This is another big one. Just because you're in the cloud doesn't mean you're dynamic. If you lift and shift 5 VMs from your private data center and put 5 VMs in the cloud, and each time you want to put another VM or server, it takes you half a day, it's not very dynamic. But it's not just that. It's things such as simple things like you've got to start thinking about monitoring. I set up a bunch of systems. They go down, they go up. It doesn't bother me because the app time stays up, system stays up. I'm not interested in a server going down because I know another one's going to come up. I'm not interested in the static binary on and off alerts anymore. What I'm interested in is trends. I'm interested in is if that server gone off and on 10 times in an hour, that's a problem. That's, again, moving from a static to a dynamic model for something like monitoring. As I said earlier, you've got 3 servers. You start naming them. You'll name them. Always name them. But now we've got to drop that. The classic, we talk about this in terms of pets versus cattle is the classic, conversation piece. But really, it's moving it away. So instead of having dedicated single servers or static servers, you have a dynamic fleet. And then all you're caring about is a replica count. I have 3, I have 10, I have 4, I don't care. So pivoting from static to dynamic solutions. One thing I don't have a slide on is about data structures as well. That's a biggie. Because again, if you're putting these static data structures, every single time you need to define a new environment, you have to set up this big old static array of configuration. You have to put it in 15 different places to get one thing in. Again, static mentality. You've got to think, how is this going to work in a dynamic environment? Understanding the value of the open source ecosystem is a big one. All the open source, a lot of these businesses that we were talking about, especially Netflix, leverage open source software. Most of the stack is not all. Some of it is on closed source. Some of it is using software as a service, APIs, but it's all largely based on the open source ecosystem. It gives you flexibility to bend technology to your requirements rather than compromise your solution for the technology's needs. If you're signed up for a vendor and you've got a cloud native strategy and they're pivotal to that, they offer a pivotal service in the center of that. Now your cloud native strategy is based upon their roadmap. Oh, they'll sell it to you. They'll go, of course, we'll develop that functionality for you. And of course, we'll keep it to you relatively cheap because we want to own the IP and we want to sell it to your competitors. So now your business advantage is everyone else's business advantage. With open source, you're taking, open source technology, you're making your own solution, you're integrating your own solutions. Reducing the risk of being locked into an ecosystem which does not conform to your cloud native strategy, what I just said. And the last one is supporting your business as a team as it explores, adopts, and adapts. This is a big one. As I said earlier, it's not a vending machine. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a go here, here's cloud native, go. Your team will have to learn what the path is for your company, or for your team, or for your department. It will have to work out what the right tooling is, what the right fit, what the right size is, where the compromises, where are the balances. What's an MVP? Where's the technical challenges? What are the debt I'm going to offload later? I'm going to accept now and offload later. And as a company, you have to support that. That's hard. Easy to say you're doing agile and you're doing infrastructure development and you're going to do this. It's hard to follow through with it. The first time that there's a major issue, there's a major situation, and it's in your nature to start cutting through and breaking processes and overriding decisions and shortcutting things, you're compromising the solution, but more importantly, you're compromising the team. You're compromising the engine of what you're trying to build. Because ultimately, when it comes to that cloud native space, you are looking at your IT teams as an engine rather as a cost center. If it's a cost center, don't do this. Don't do it. Don't do cloud native. It's cost center. Pay someone else to do it for you. If ultimately it's a line in the budget sheet, give it to AWS. Because AWS is coming to eat everyone's lunch. The same way as Google is everyone else's. Because they're doing this. So, on that happy note, just to highlight what were the things earlier, scalable, dynamic, containers, service meshes, microservices, immutable infrastructure, declarative APIs, loosely coupled, resilient, manageable, observable, automation, changes predictably and minimum toil. These are just points of reference. This is not the map, this isn't the plan, but they're indicators if you're on the right path or a good path. So what is cloud native? It's the next branded wave of technical advancement. It's deciding your business will embrace the advantages that cloud and cloud-aligned technologies bring. It's removing the fear of technical change. It's accepting all layers of your stack are open for business. It's pivoting from static to dynamic solutions. It's understanding the value of the open source ecosystem, and it's supporting your business and teams as it explores, adapts, and adopts. With that, thank you for listening.
Hello, thank you. That was fascinating. We're going to take a 5-minute break while we get Tony set up. So grab a drink, grab some, so if there's any food left, use the facilities, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.